I'm Kyra.
Hi, I'm Katya.
And you're listening to...
Horrified Honeys.
Yeah, right.
Let's get horrified.
Let's get spooky. Or you can talk about why we're starting a podcast.
Oh. Because we'd like to. We wanna. I got into true crime and this sort of stuff because I know this is bad, or I think I was raised fine, but I would watch these shows with my dad when I was younger on like the crime channel, and it was always like women who kill, like things like that. And I loved them. And I distinctly remember one. I was probably like 12 when we watched this one. And it was like a couple, like this man and this woman were having an affair, and then they needed to get rid of the other man, and they killed him and then cut up his body and put it in a suitcase and like went off with it. That's like the first story that I remember. But now here we are.
At 12 years old.
Here we are over a decade later.
Yeah. No, a decade later. No.
No.
Wow.
Sorry, babes.
Wow. My brain's not doing anything. Yeah, so we just really enjoy true crime. And we are not the kind of people who would normally do something like this. But we thought it would be fun and hopefully educational, because that is kind of the point of why we want to do it, especially because where we live in South Africa, there is a shit ton of crime. And it doesn't really get that much coverage. Only like the big, the big names, the big cases, and there's a lot to cover.
Yeah.
And if you find this stuff interesting, like we do, because sometimes you're like, how the hell can someone do this? And you want to know, then
we're here to tell you.
Like and subscribe, babes.
We also don't know why they do.
How does it work on a podcast? Follow.
Download.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So we thought we would start with a case each. And
here we go.
Let's go.
Just jumping in here to say that we got a bit carried away. Turns out we like talking.
Which is ironic because we're both introverts.
And shy. But basically, now you have two in one day.
Yeah, so you've got part 1 and part 2 to listen whenever you want to listen. If you guys are happy with an hour and 15-minute long podcast, let us know, because
we can do that.
We can totally do that. So episode 1, part 1, will be about the Satanic Panic in the 90s in South Africa.
And part 2 will be about Daisy de Milka, the first South African serial killer.
Ooh. So let's get into it. So, what happened when I was doing this is I started with one case, but it sort of spiraled into something else, and there's a bunch of other stuff, so just bear with me because it's a little bit chaotic.
I like it.
Right, so we are taking it back to 1992, okay, early 90s, where we meet a 16-year-old girl named Angelique Orso. I don't know if I'm saying her surname right.
Orso.
I guess so. She was described as different, a loner. She was thin and had long, stringy black hair. She was always wearing black clothing and black nail polish. You know when they describe people? Yeah. Kind of sounds like us.
She just described both of us.
Yep. So Angelique met a boy named Lawrence. Sorry, I did that wrong. In my head, I was trying to figure out how you say his name. Lawrence. When she was in school, she met a boy named Lawrence van Black, who was 18 years old at the time, and they started dating.
She's 16.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was described as scrawny and springy and even more withdrawn than she was.
Just your casual emo couple.
Yeah.
In the 90s.
And someone who went to school with them said they always stood out because they were always alone. Like they were those peeps. No, I don't know if you want to feel sorry for them yet. Okay, so in 1992, Angelique's mother, Dawn, was found dead, brutally murdered, buried in a shallow grave at her home in Cape Town. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any information on Dawn as a person. I don't really know what she was like. The info on this case is like very scarce.
She has a cool name.
She does have a cool name.
I feel
Dawn
like if
is
your
a beautiful
name is Dawn, then you're like already...
You're just a cool person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the only thing that was ever used to describe her was the word housewife, and I feel like there's a lot more to a person than being a housewife.
She was a housewife.
But anyway, that was the only thing. I couldn't find anything on her. So her hands had been bound with stockings or pantyhose for people who call them that.
Knicker hose.
Sure. And there was blood on her head, which they found to have been from being hit with a frying pan. However, when the killer realized that the blow to the head wasn't enough, they strangled her with a wire coat hanger.
No, wait. Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Horrific.
Frying pan, like, good weapon.
Sure.
I mean, no.
Yeah, wait, what?
I mean, like, if there's an intruder, I would also go for the frying pan.
Yeah.
But they are the intruder.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes. So, Angelique and Lawrence disappeared shortly before the discovery of her body. Suspicious.
A little bit.
I would just like to say. Okay, so it was soon revealed that they were the killers.
No way.
And the police were very quick to point out the possibility of it being a satanic murder in some way, because they found, and they just say, satanic paraphernalia in their possession. Don't
Black
say
nail
what
polish.
it is. They don't say anything. That's
Metallica CD.
exactly. That's like, I mean, that's why when they described her, I was like, that's really ridiculous, because just if you wear black nail polish, it's okay, I promise. So, yeah, so basically, I mean, that is the crime, and the point of me covering this case is actually about the aftermath, which is very interesting. So when the police came out and said this, you know, it's possibly something to do with Satanism, whatever.
The Satans.
The Satans. The media got involved, and that was like every headline about this murder was satanic, ritual, cult, whatever.
Just
and
in the context of like the world, was South Africa on the same track with the Satanic Panic as the rest?
that's my next point.
Oh, sorry.
Well done. Nice segue. And because of the Satanic Panic happening in South Africa at the time. Okay, no, so we'll get into that just now. But because of that, and it was definitely happening at the time, and the police saying it and the media jumping on it, Angelique and... What?
Lawrence.
My brain just can't do it. Lawrence.
Okay, just point at me, I'll do it.
Okay. So the teenagers saw this as an opportunity for a defense angle to jump on board and be like, it wasn't us, it was the demons. So,
What?
yeah. So basically they claimed at the trial that they were possessed by a demon.
Oh.
So the boyfriend, stated that he had been influenced by an unknown force, probably to do with Satanism.
Probably.
That's what he said.
Not sure, but if I had to guess.
Yes, Laura. And that he felt possessed by the devil inside. So that was his defense.
What is the feeling? How do you know that you're possessed?
I guess you read it in the newspapers and you're like, this is the one.
Like you go onto WebMD and you're like, what
are the symptoms? So the judge in this case, Mr. Justice Williamson, cool name, was having none of this bullshit.
None.
Was having none of it. And he found them both guilty for the murder, stating that their actions were too obviously goal-oriented to be involuntary. Which is a cool way of putting it.
Yeah.
And he specified that the court does accept the fact that people can be possessed by demons, but was not convinced in this case. So, too bad, too sad.
So demons are legit, is what I'm hearing.
Well, yeah, he's saying he can acknowledge that does happen, but it was not the case here.
Good stuff.
So, are you ready for this little tidbit of information? She was sentenced to 11 years, and he was sentenced to 8 years, and this was in 1992.
No, they're out.
So they do be free. Out and about on the town. I have no idea where they are now.
Did they change their names and stuff?
I have no idea.
No.
11 years for murdering your mother.
She was 16. But
Minor
still.
in South Africa? What's the age?
18.
Yeah. maybe that's, but still, 11 years.
But he was 18.
Yeah, and he only got 8.
What the heck?
Shocking.
Shocking.
Okay, so that's that case, right?
That could be my neighbor. Like,
Yeah.
that could be anyone.
You don't know. You
I'm just going to
don't know.
start in the streets. I'm going to be like, Angelique. And if someone looks, I'll be like, you.
Don't do all Angelique's dirty like that. You're rude to Angelique's. Okay, so now we're coming back to the Satanic Panic thing. So it was kind of, the whole Satanic Panic thing was a moral panic about alleged satanic rituals that were becoming more and more common, and murders that were related to something satanic, and crimes and all of that. So it started in the States in the 80s and the early 90s, and then it spread on over to good old South Africa.
As it does.
As it does. So in 1992, which was the same year that this murder happened, the South African Police Service, we call them SAPS.
Saps.
They created the
Saps.
they created the Occult Related Crimes Unit, and it was established and led by a born-again Christian, Kobus Jonker. Kobie.
Take us home, Corbus.
So these were, obviously 1992 was in the last few years of apartheid, so obviously, as we know, the dominant group at the time were the white Christian peeps. So
No
obviously,
way.
you don't say.
I've never heard of that.
So they played a big role in how the unit was affected, and being Christian was literally a prerequisite to be in the unit. So you couldn't serve in the unit unless you were Christian.
Heck.
Yeah. That's a little bit messed up. So the dude who established it, he was nicknamed... Kobus was nicknamed the Hound of God and God's Detective.
Ooh.
High ranking.
God's Detective. I love that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, we don't like this guy. But
like, if I had that title, I'd be stoked about it.
yeah, sure. Well, I guess, I don't know, do we like this guy? I'm not so sure, because he has a lot of generalizations that we're going to get to in a sec. We don't like him, I've decided.
Yeah.
This unit, this occult-related thingy unit, listed 41 warning signs of possible occult-related activities. So I'm only going to name a few, and these were the absolute most ridiculous ones. Gender confusion.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Fantasy games. So in America, that was a big part. Was
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, exactly. So D&D was a big part of, like, oh, kids are playing this, and it's making them worship the devil. Interest in computers. So
the
we
whole
all
of the
screwed.
crowd.
Yeah. Excessive interest in horror movies and heavy metal music.
So we are satanic.
Yeah, because we love horror movies. Depression.
That do be us.
And gothic fashion. Black clothing and nail polish, which is why people specify that she did that, which is really silly, because like they do that in a few cases where they're like, oh, she dressed all dark and she had black nail polish and she liked heavy metal music, but that does not mean anything.
We're just out here trying to wear black.
It's just really, and black looks good on everyone, so everyone wears black. Anyway, so South African children were banned from reading the Harry Potter books because of the witchcraft. I can attest to that because I wasn't allowed to read them at a stage. And from buying Lay's chips because they contain those novelty Pokemon collectibles things.
No.
Yeah. And apparently, it literally said, the article said, they were banned from buying Lay's chips that contain novelty Pokemon collectibles that kids were said to have killed one another for. But I could not find any evidence of kids killing each other for these little Pokemon things.
Little Johnny killing little Benny for a Pokemon figure.
This is how ridiculous the whole thing was. Is
gosh.
people took this tiny little, satanic panic thing and then ran with it and made it the most ridiculous things. Of course. And Harry Potter. Hello.
I mean, when I lived in Jeffreys Bay and there was only one cinema, they tried to ban Golden Compass from showing there.
That was another big one.
And that was
at
like
the time.
2000 and something.
But the thing is, in South Africa, it lasted a long time. And I think even today, people are still skeptical about stuff like that, which is really silly. Okay, so Kobus, old Kobie, he said he believed that there were thousands of Satanists in South Africa at the time, and that apparently those Satanists in the South Africas had sent him death threats And someone went as far as to send him a pair of severed baboon hands in the post.
Oh, where does one get a pair of severed baboon hands?
Well, they're Satanists, so obviously they just,
They just
This is according to Quirby, so...
Quirby, Uncle Quibs.
Yeah. So the commissioner at the time, who was like in charge of all the police peeps, he refused to go into Quibus's office because he would keep souvenirs from his cases, like creepy stuff.
Oh, I love that.
Like candles made from human fat,
Oh, I don't
chained
love
Bibles, and animal skulls. And above his office was a plaque that said, "Onder Jesus' bloed," under Jesus' blood, as in like under his protection. Jump forward to 2002. Jonker had a heart attack, shame, and he left the police to become a pastoral counsellor, as you do.
Yes, because you need to convert the Satanists, the emo kids,
You
right?
gotta do it somewhere, yeah.
Oh.
But you can't do it in the police because you just had a heart attack.
Yeah.
It's too stressful. So then in 2006, the police said that they had disbanded the unit and it had been like reabsorbed into other departments. But
Oh yeah.
there's a but. In 2012, a police memo was leaked, like internally, so someone done leaked it. And it said that they were reviving the unit, but just under a different name. So it was now the SAP's Harmful Religious Practices Unit. It's not very catchy.
No.
So, and then also apparently Quibus came back to train these new detectives in the unit on like how to, yeah. And now with this revival, their scope of what is like occult-related crimes and stuff had also expanded. And now it included curses intended to harm, practice of voodoo intended to cause harm,
But you can
vampirism,
Okay.
how do you say that?
vamp.
Yeah, that one. Don't be sucking people's blood. Also, poltergeist phenomena. And I just feel like it's a very large...
Yeah. Also, you can't like
Control, exactly.
They're like, oh, you have a poltergeist in your house. It's because you're Satan.
Yeah, and these were the things that they had listed that if this is the case, they have the right to investigate it, basically.
Oh my gosh.
Wild.
Wild.
So that is the Satanic Panic and Old Quirby and his role and everything. So now there are a few other cases at the time within those like the years when it was really hectic that very similar to the other case because of the media and how bad everything was getting, these murderers would use that as their defense.
Oh.
And it was like kind of an easy one for them because everyone was already stressed about this. So it was like, oh, maybe I can get a lighter sentence because it wasn't me, it was a demon and I was possessed.
But then is that like if you compare that to pleading like insanity?
I imagine it's something like that. It's like diminished.
Yeah.
Yeah. These are just some of the other cases. I'm not going to go in like I'm going to go into detail about one of them because it's really hectic and I feel like maybe we should do a case on its own.
Okay.
But I'm going to just go into it a little bit. So we just want to pop in and give a little trigger warning here. There is mention of sexual assault and it is involving children. We don't go into any detail, but if that is something that you don't want to listen to, then just skip forward a little bit. So, I don't want to say this guy's name incorrectly. Gert van Rooyen and his lover, Joey Haarhoff, who is a woman. I thought it was a man and I thought it was a lot more spicy, but it's not. Allegedly...
Not that kind of Satan.
No. Oh. Allegedly abducted and murdered several young girls who went missing between 1998 and 1990. So police were investigating him. They were suspected of it. And then during a police chase in 1990, Van Rooyen killed the partner and then committed suicide during the police chase. Unfortunately, the bodies of those girls were never ever found.
No, that's cruel.
So I do have the names of the victims and their ages, so I'm just going to read them out so that we know who they are, and unfortunately they haven't been found or, their families haven't gotten closure, which is really, really horrible because of this stupid man and woman. So Yolanda Vessels was 13. Tracy Lee Scott Crossley was 14. Odette Boucher was 11.
11.
11, she was the youngest. Joan Horn was 12. Fiona Harvey was 12. Anna Marie Vapenard was 12.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's horrible.
And then there was a survivor. There's a survivor story, and she, when everything came out, she submitted her story to like a newspaper place, and so my brain, a newspaper, and they actually lost her contact details, so they don't actually know who this woman is. They have her story, and they don't have her name or where she is now, and they're not able to like get in contact with her.
That's bad.
Yeah, that's really bad. But I'm just going to read her survival story because it's quite hectic. It was 1976. So 76, and these girls, that was between 1998 and 1990. So
for some reason I was still thinking we're in the 2000s.
Well, no, the stuff happened in the 90s.
Oh, okay.
But like 76.
76.
So now you can imagine how long they were doing this for.
Oh.
Because those girls went missing between 98 and 90.
This was long.
Yeah. I was 12 years old and living in Durban North. I went to play at a friend's house where a chap called Tim, and the names have been changed in the story, where a chap called Tim was working with my friend's father, who had a plumbing business at the time. I was about to walk home when Tim said he would give me a lift. I accepted because he worked with someone I knew, and I had seen him on several occasions. I was slightly apprehensive as my friend Mandy, also 12, said he had kissed her once, and I knew that was wrong. But he was quite insistent. Once I was in the car, he set off in a direction opposite to my house. I told him my mom was waiting for me, but he replied that he had to pop home quickly and then he would take me home. When the trip was about 10 minutes in, I asked him please to let me out, but he reached across my lap and held me in my seat until he reached his destination near North Coast Road. He grabbed my wrist and pulled me out of the driver's side so that I had no chance to run, but he was joking and being friendly at the same time. When we walked in the front door, there was an older couple sitting in the lounge. Tim looked surprised to see them, and there were suitcases in the lounge. They spoke Afrikaans to each other, not knowing I spoke it fluently. I remember the older man had asked Tim where he was going to put me and who knew I was there. Tim then led me to a room upstairs. I was panicking, but knew that keeping calm was going to save me. Tim returned a minute later to say Wim was staying for a bit, so I had to stay here for a while before we could be alone. I don't know what came over me. I was so innocent and terrified, but I said to him that perhaps we could go to the Crown Hotel for a drink, and then we could be alone without Wim hanging around. Sheesh, 12 years old to think of that.
Oh my gosh.
The Crown was in Red Hill, near to where I lived. It was the only way I knew to give myself time to think and get closer to home. It's actually very smart.
Yeah, very. At 12.
Yeah. I also knew that the Red Hill police station was just across the road from the hotel. Tim looked amazed and then said yes. He took me to the car, through the driver's side as before, strapped me in, but this time drove without his arm across me. Just his hand resting on my leg. I smiled at him. That I remember clearly. I was playing along and it felt like it was working. How did I come up with this plan? I can honestly say that God was looking after me. Inside, my heart was thumping. I just wanted my mom. It's heartbreaking. At the Crown Hotel, we sat down at the outside tables. Tim looked like he wanted to go inside straight away. I told him that I was nervous, and if he could order us both a drink, it would make me less so. Being underage, they wouldn't serve me, so he had to go in and order from the bar. He did so, obviously thinking he had my full compliance. The minute he disappeared through the hotel doors, I ran faster than I had ever run before towards the police station. To my horror, a van pulled up with my friend's father inside. He was fuming and ordered me to get inside. I should have continued on to the police station, but if he had given chase, he would have caught me, so I got in. I thought it was a case of out of the frying pan into the fire, but he took me straight home. A few months later, I was watching the news on TV. A picture of the older man at Tim's house came onto the screen. My blood ran cold. It was Gert van Rooyen, and I realized he had hurt and killed girls my age. Everything swirled in my head, and I became very quiet for ages afterwards. I was reluctant to leave the house. I blamed myself for not telling the police what had happened. Maybe I could have saved at least some of those girls. I don't know. What I do know is that I should have at least tried. The nightmares have been with me over the years, just as strong as they were in the beginning. In time, the photo of Joey Harhoff was released. Without a doubt, that was the woman I met in Tim's lounge, even though her hair had been a different color then. I also know that Tim must have been involved in recruiting victims, and I was meant to be one. I'm doing this to say sorry to the victims I could have saved, and to have Tim brought to justice, because there's no doubt in my mind that he was very much a part of this tragedy.
Oh my gosh. But then she's like blaming herself for not. That's horrible.
And the friggin' other person was in on it.
Yeah.
And recruiting girls. It's disgusting.
So disgusting. It's so scary. And then you have to like live with that memory your whole life.
I mean, she did a brilliant job at keeping calm and coming up with... table.
Kyra farted.
No, the table creaked.
That is so horrible.
Yeah. So, how is this satanic, you ask?
Well, I was thinking
hang on.
This whole time I was like, how's this satanic? And then you got to the end of the story and I was like, this is just a lot.
It gets wilder, can you believe?
Gosh.
So, in 1991, Van Rooyen's son, Flippy, that's a choice. That name is a choice. He was convicted of murdering a 15-year-old Zimbabwean girl during his military service.
Ew.
Originally, he was sentenced to death, but then commuted to life in prison. Okay. So this is now Van Rooyen, the dude's son.
Okay, yeah.
That's been convicted of murdering a 15-year-old girl. So obviously
it runs in the blood.
Disgusting. So while he was serving his sentence, in 1997, he claimed that the missing girls his father abducted and murdered were killed in satanic rituals and were victims of an international child pornography ring. However, no evidence was found of this. So then he had 6 years added to his sentence for perjury and false statements. But then he was paroled in 2008 anyway.
No,
yeah.
He wasn't.
And I said, yeah, ew.
Ew.
Yeah, how disgusting.
That's
he murdered a 15-year-old girl,
oh my God.
got sentenced to death, then commuted to life in prison, then added 6 years onto that,
and then
then paroled.
What the hell?
And then, can you believe?
No, I can't.
There's more.
No.
Harhoff's son. So
You're just going, ha, ha, ha.
It's just so wild, I can't keep up. So, Harhoff, the woman, so his partner.
Yes.
Her son.
Wait, is this Joey?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So they weren't actually married.
Yeah, okay.
From what I'm understanding, and they had their own kids.
Oh, okay,
it was just partners.
Yeah.
So her son, Bram, was convicted of molesting a young girl in New Zealand and found guilty on 8 charges, including rape.
No.
What the hell?
What the hell? That is... that.
And I don't know... I have no idea how old these kids were at the time, because that would be interesting to know. Because, like, I feel like if you grow up to do things like this, you must have seen something at some point or been taught something, or, like, they must have been exposed to it in some way. Because both of them, one freaking murdered a child, and the other one molested a child.
Like, that makes me think a lot into like nature versus nurture thing. But like,
which is a very complicated discussion.
But that is wild. That's disgusting.
Yeah, and I don't really get what the son was trying to do. Like, what was he gonna get out of? Like, I don't know. Maybe it was a satanic thing. Who freaking knows? Because we'll never know, which is really heartbreaking. But I think it's a very similar thing of, jump on the bandwagon and this makes it sound more...
No.
I don't know. It's gross. So...
There's more!
So I'm just going to mention 2 more cases that were sort of involved in all of this. There is a lot more, so it's worth going and looking it up if you want to. But I'm not going to go into detail about this one because I know we want to cover this one. It's Alison Buerta. So she was abducted, raped, stabbed, and disemboweled by 2 men in Port Elizabeth. During the aftermath, one of the attackers claimed that he was possessed by a demon and actually underwent an exorcism which was publicized.
What do you mean publicized?
I guess it was shown to everyone.
Like on the televisions?
We'll find out when we cover the episode.
Oh, okay. I thought that was like a sneaky, you'll find out in a few seconds.
I didn't want to go like into it too much because I know we want to do that one.
Yeah.
And when they were sentenced, Satanism was not considered a mitigating factor at all.
Oh.
It's just like, it's crazy. Like, all these people are just like, wasn't me. It was a demon.
Satan done it.
And the other guy didn't say anything about that. He was not like, no, I was not possessed by a demon.
What the hell?
But I didn't want to go into too much because I think that will be
that'll be a huge
full
one.
episode on its own, yeah. But it was just interesting that was also part of all of this.
Yeah.
And then another one was Maurice Smith, along with 2 school friends, murdered and decapitated a homeless man in East London. Smith said that he was a satanic high priest and that he killed the man to get the human skull to give him power.
No.
He received a 30-year prison sentence, 30 years, for murdering and decapitating.
No.
And Satanism was not considered a mitigating factor in the sentencing. And this case was the case that Quibus, our friend Quibby, said that
Uncle Quibs?
This gave SAPS like their first concrete evidence of a human sacrifice.
What?
But the court was like,
What?
we don't think Satanism is a factor here.
What? But...
And that is all I have on the Satanic Panic.
Oh my gosh.
And what started with the death of poor Dawn Orso, and just like the crazy aftermath of all of that.
Crazy.
And there's a lot more cases that people were just like, cool, this is what's happening in the media. I'm gonna use this to my advantage and be like, wasn't me.
No. That is horrible.
And the youngest victim was 11. I also feel like maybe... Well, actually, I don't even know, because for the son, like, I'm still trying to wrap my brain around why the son would say that, because it obviously makes them look horrible that that's the reason that they did it, but then it's also like you trying to excuse that it wasn't them, they were doing it for something else.
Yeah, it's funny that it's like okay that it was Satan.
Yeah, that's the like bizarre thing, is all these people were like, if I can convince the court a demon did it or Satan did it, it's not any like worse than if I just did it myself. It's like, there's no logic with these people, because with the things that they do, there is no logic involved.
Oh my gosh.
Like, yeah,
Satan did it.
crazy.
He does the wildest things, that man.
And Quirby also just needs to have a chat, because listen, Quirby, people wear black nail polish, love horror movies, and they don't worship Satan, and they don't go around committing crimes. So that was obviously messed up in itself.
A little bit.
A very much bit. But
the
fact that the police, like a government police body, set up a whole unit based on something religious and like investigated people, and he was called on these cases as like a star, what do you call them when it's like an expert or whatever? Like he was brought onto these cases.
Oh my gosh. After he had like left the...
Yeah, he just continued to do that.
Oh my gosh.
And then he still came back to train the new people.
No.
The revived unit.
The revived? No, that's absolutely not.
Yeah, right.
That was a good case, Kyra.
Yeah, it was a good
very
case.
well. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
So that's the end of part 1. We hope you enjoyed it as much as you can enjoy Satanic Panic. And I mean, if you want to just download the next one and go straight into it, no one's judging you here.
But maybe paint your nails black in between, just to be fully immersed
In the culture.
Like culture.
So yeah, go listen to part 2. It's a good one.
If you have any case suggestions, pop them on our Instagram.
At Horrified Honeys.
And we'll see what we can do.
See ya!
We don't want to be ya. Bye, honeys. Stay sweet,
Safe.
and spooky.